instead of just teaching, making sure you're actually sharing the story. And you could even share the emotions that you felt at that moment, just trying to connect. I think the biggest thing today is making sure you're creating content that connects. Big thing, big thing. So every time you're creating content, you could just write this down. Does this connect with my ideal client? Does this connect? Hey, welcome back to another episode of Christian Entrepreneurs Rise Up. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Today, we're talking about how to turn your I help statement into content that actually attracts your ideal client. Today's episode is kind of continuation off of episode 558. So if you haven't listened to that yet, I recommend going back and listening to that and actually creating your I help statement. So in that episode, I walk through step by step how to create an I help statement that will attract your ideal clients. And then today we're building off of that. So go back and listen to that first. And then once you have your I help statement, that's when you're going to jump into this episode and we're going to talk about creating content. So the internet's very noisy. Very noisy. It just keeps getting noisier. And then there's AI stuff everywhere. I don't like AI now. I like it, but I don't like it. It's one of those weird things where I'm like, this could make our lives so much better, but it also is so annoying because it's hard to tell what's real, what's not real. How do we connect? When there's so much stuff all over the place. So I'm hoping today will give you a little bit of clarity. We're going to use AI as a tool to help us create content, but it's not the only thing that's going to help us create content. And I'm going to share that, break it down, and really help you attract your ideal client. So grab your notebook. I'm hoping this will help you. So I have been creating content since 2010. I'm like an OG in the content space. It's been around for a minute. And oh my gosh, you should go back to some of my old stuff. If you go to my old fitness YouTube channel, oh my gosh, it's kind of embarrassing. But, you just start with what you know and you start with what you have, and then you get better as you go. So that's what, you just move, you just start and you go and you get better. Anyways, when I started creating content, I didn't understand the power of my voice and what I have to offer. I was young. I was 23? I just turned 23. We had just gotten married. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And I also didn't have a ton of confidence in myself at that time. So I was actually a part of network marketing company. That was my on road to entrepreneurship. And in that network marketing company, I saw the people that were making a ton of money. They were the top 10 in our company. And so when I was so excited and wanted to do well. So I just looked at what they were doing and I said, well, if I just do what they do, then I'll be successful. But I took it a step further and I was like, well, if I just post what they post, then I'll be successful, which clearly doesn't work. So I would just copy and paste, some of the top coaches' posts, and clearly nothing happened in my business for a long time. When you try to be somebody else, when you're not authentic. And the same thing could go for AI, just using AI to write all of the content for you. It's really important that you understand that you have a voice, that your voice matters, that the content that you create needs to come from you and not just from AI or, copy and pasting some stranger on the internet. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So I'm going to give you a prompt to use AI as a tool, but then I'm going to show you how to make it a little bit more personal so that you create content that actually does connect. Because, I taught how to use AI 3 years ago at a conference that I was hosting for my students. And, I've been asked, how do we use AI? How does, what's the future of business with AI? And I think what I said back then is what I stand upon now, is that creating a human connection is more important than ever, and making sure you are being yourself all the time and not trying to put on, a fancy face for everyone else. And trying to be the perfect version of yourself, essentially, or trying to be somebody else. Don't put on a mask, just be yourself. And that's what I've always strived, strive to do, is just to be myself. As like after that moment, like as I've learned and as I've grown, which means I don't over edit anything. If I, like what I just did, if I mess up, I keep it. I don't go back and edit it and be like, oh my gosh, at like 7 minutes and 30 seconds, I said, we got to take that out. No. If you'll see an episode I just recorded with Matt Fledgler. He's great. He's in Australia, and so I had to record at a different time than I normally do. Normally I record all my podcast episodes during the day when my daughter's in school. And I had to record it at 4 p.m. after I picked her up. And you'll see like midway through the episode, she just comes on in and she's behind me, and she's just playing with my fake plant that I have behind me. And you're gonna see all of that. And I don't, because I think it's important for people to realize that you can be human and build a business, and you don't have to be a robot. Um, yeah, you don't have to be some kind of perfect person. Anybody can do this. So I'll come on sweaty, haven't showered yet. Well, I actually didn't sweat today because I didn't feel good, so I haven't worked out yet. But I haven't showered. Could go for a shower. It'll happen eventually, but not now. So I just think it's important for people to see those things. So be yourself. Like that's the first thing I want you to take away, is just to be yourself. If you don't wear blazers and suit coats on a regular basis, I don't think you need to dress up and wear that for the content that you're creating. Just saying. I put on something a little fancy today only because after this, I'm doing something for another business, and they expect me to be fancy. So I got something a little fancier on. But I wouldn't do this for that. I mean, for the podcast. Just saying. I'm just saying. Okay. Anyways, so the I help statement is the foundation for your content strategy. So making sure you have that down. So your I help statement is like the compass that is putting all your content in the right direction. So we have to have that first. Okay. 1 Corinthians 14:33 says, for God is not a God of confusion, but of peace. So you have to show up with clarity to bring peace to your audience. So you're helping them make sense of what they're struggling with. Okay. So the formula for the I help statement, I'm just giving you a review. I help whoever you help who struggle with the problem they struggle with to results through method. So taking that I help statement, you could put this into Chat GPT. So this is the prompt that I use, and I'll show you the results of that prompt. This is a hypothetical business, but you could say this is my business. I help busy Christian moms lose weight and gain energy through faith-based fitness coaching. Create 100 pieces of content for my ideal client. So you could decide what kind of specific content. So I said podcast content, 100 pieces of podcast content for my ideal client. And so it came back with this, here's 100 pieces of podcast episode ideas specifically for your niche. These episodes are designed to be 20 to 40 minutes each, mixing practical fitness, nutrition tips with scripture, prayer, real life mom struggles, and encouragement. They're perfect for your ideal client to listen to while folding laundry, driving kids to practice, or walking the neighborhood. So I love what ChatGPT came back with. If you wanted this to be more specific, so let's say you want every podcast episode to be 15 minutes in length, you could put that in there. Like, I want these to be short and sweet and to the point. So just decide on what you want it to be. So it came up with like kind of a series of 1 to 20. Here's just some examples of what it came up with. Why your body is a temple and what that really means for weight loss. How to stop emotional eating when the kids drive you crazy. Grace over guilt, what to do after a binge. Is gluttony keeping you stuck? Honest talk plus scripture. So I'm not going to read all of these because it gave me 100 different ideas, which is crazy. So it goes, you now have an entire year of high value niche specific content that speaks directly to the heart and pain points of busy Christian moms. Start recording. Your ideal client is waiting. Let me know if you want scripts, if you want titles refined, or a content calendar built from this. So, I mean, you could go back and say, make sure each title is SEO friendly for iTunes and then for YouTube. And like the options are endless. You could say, create a script for me for this episode. However, I wouldn't just go off of an AI driven script. Here's where, so you can get the script, but you want to make it personal. So step two would be make it personal for them. And so this is where you figure out what are their struggles? What do like what keeps them up at night? What are the exact words their audience uses? And so making sure your content actually includes their struggles. So here's an example. If you're feeling overwhelmed trying to do all the things, God didn't call you to burn out, He called you to build. So it's about connecting with them. And then step three, this is what's going to set your content apart is you teaching, testifying, and transforming. So making sure within each episode, giving practical tips to solve that person's problem, your ideal client's problem. So you got to know what's the problem that they have and giving them practical tips that they can walk away with. So here are 3 mom-friendly ways to hit your protein goal, even on chicken nugget and mac and cheese nights. So there's an example. You want to testify. And so this is where you share stories. And so sharing your own story, sharing your client story, I definitely recommend you sharing your own story often, like in every episode if you're doing a podcast. So an example might be, let me tell you about the time that I found myself face down in a pan of brownies after I put the kids to bed. So just keeping it real, sharing the struggle and the success. So instead of just going straight to like, here's the success, here's the win, here's what I learned, here's what I want to teach you, actually including here's the struggle and the story of the struggle that I had. And here's kind of the epiphany, the thing that I learned. And now here's the outcome of what I'm doing now and how I got there. And so instead of just teaching, making sure you're actually sharing the story. And you could even share the emotions that you felt at that moment, just trying to connect. I think the biggest thing today is making sure you're creating content that connects. Big thing, big thing. So every time you're creating content, you could just write this down. Does this connect with my ideal client? Does this connect? And then number 3 would be transform. So ending with encouragement, ending them with something that's going to point them back to Jesus. So an example of this might be you're not failing. God is writing a redemption story with your stretch marks, with your tired eyes, and every single all-start Monday you've ever said. He's the God who turns water into wine and pantry breakdowns into breakthroughs. So always making sure you're including this. You teach, you testify, creating story and transform. So you're not just creating content, you're building connection, you're building friendship. You want people to actually feel like they know you. And that happens through vulnerability, through not being perfect. So that way they'll start thinking of you of, oh, this is my coach that actually understands and actually gets it instead of, oh, this is just another perfect, perfect fitness person, right? And that's what really turns people into raving fans and making them feel like they actually do know you. Um, okay. I'm gonna I'm gonna save repurposing for another episode. So maybe I'll dive into that into the next episode. I have it in my notes here, but I feel like this is good. This is a good place to stop for now. Um, so the biggest takeaway I want you to have is creating content. Yes, you can use AI. I gave you an AI prompt, but I want you to include that with teaching, with testifying, creating a story, and transforming. And always, always just think of, does this connect? Does this connect with my ideal client? Does this serve my ideal client? Um, that's the biggest thing. So if this was helpful, please share it with a friend. And then you can send me a DM on Instagram at She's Making an Impact and leave a review of the show that helps us reach more people and make a greater impact. So I hope this was helpful. We'll see you in the next episode.